You've just closed the front door, and for the first time in days, the house is completely still. There are no roommates talking, no partner asking what's for dinner, and no colleagues buzzing around your desk. In theory, this is the moment of peace you've been claiming to need all week. But as the silence settles into the corners of the room, you don't feel relaxed. Instead, you feel a subtle, creeping sense of panic. It's a physical weight in your chest, an itch under your skin that demands to be scratched. Within seconds, you've turned on the television just for the background noise. You've opened your laptop to scroll through a feed of people you barely know. You've sent 3 meaningless texts just to see the 3 little dots of someone typing back. You are doing everything in your power to avoid the one person who is currently in the room with you, yourself. Most people think that being unable to be alone is just a personality trait, a sign that someone is a social butterfly or an extrovert. But if we look closer, we find a much deeper psychological survival mechanism. Today, on The Inverse Mind, we are going inside the mind of the person who is terrified of the silence. We are going to deconstruct why we use other people as a form of emotional white noise, what exactly happens in the brain when the distractions stop, and how to stop being a refugee from your own company. Stay with me until the end, because I'm going to share the one specific mindset shift that turns the prison of loneliness into the sanctuary of solitude. To understand why some of us can't be alone, we have to look at the concept of the externalized self. For many individuals, their sense of existing, their very identity, is dependent on being mirrored by another person. Think of it like a lighthouse that only knows it's shining because it sees the light reflecting off the water. When there is no water, the lighthouse feels dark. If you struggle with being alone, you likely use other people to confirm that you are real, that you are valuable, and that you are okay. When you are with others, you have a role to play. You are the funny friend, the supportive partner, or the hardworking employee. These roles give you a script. But when the audience leaves and the stage lights go down, the script disappears. Without someone there to perceive you, you feel a terrifying sense of dissolution. You don't know who you are when nobody is watching, and that void is the most frightening place a human being can visit. This behavior is almost always rooted in early childhood attachment. If you were raised in an environment where your emotions were only validated when they were shared, or if you had a primary caregiver who was inconsistent or intrusive, you learned a very specific lesson. Safety is found in the presence of others, and danger is found in the gaps. For an infant, being alone is a literal death sentence. We are born with a biological imperative to seek proximity. But as we grow, we are supposed to develop what psychologists call a stable internal base. This is the ability to carry the feeling of being loved and seen, even when we are physically by ourselves. For the person who can't be alone, this internal base was never fully constructed. They are still that child, looking around the room, panicking because they can't find the person who makes them feel safe. As an adult, they simply swap the parent for a partner, a friend, or even a digital crowd of strangers on the internet. We also have to talk about the concept of the internal monologue. When we are busy and surrounded by people, our brain is focused on the logistics of the outside world. We are managing conversations, reading social cues, and reacting to external stimuli. This keeps the prefrontal cortex occupied. But the moment we are alone and the external world goes quiet, the internal world gets very loud. This is when the thoughts you've been suppressing for weeks finally catch up to you. The regrets from 5 years ago, the anxieties about the future, and the harsh self-criticism you usually drown out with work or social media suddenly have the floor. For many, being alone isn't about the absence of people. It's about the presence of an internal critic they don't know how to silence. They run back into the arms of others, not because they love those people so much, but because they are trying to escape the person living inside their own head. This leads to a phenomenon called serial relationship addiction. You've likely seen this or experienced it yourself. The person who can't stay single for more than 2 weeks. The moment one relationship ends, they are already on the hunt for the next one. They aren't looking for a soulmate, they are looking for a placeholder. They stay in toxic, draining, or mediocre relationships far longer than they should because the pain of a bad partner is still preferable to the perceived agony of an empty bed. To them, being alone feels like a public admission of failure. It feels like being unchosen, which their brain interprets as being unlovable. They use relationships like a physical shield to protect them from the existential dread of their own company. They would rather be miserable with someone else than be peacefully alone. If you're finding any value in this deep dive so far, or if you just want to put a smile on my face, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It honestly makes my day, and it goes a long way. I really appreciate that. Now, we have to look at the digital leash that social media has provided for the modern autophobe. In the past, being alone required a certain amount of grit. If you were home alone, you were truly alone. But today, we carry a portable crowd in our pockets. We have replaced true solitude with a state of perpetual connectivity. We use social media as a way to simulate presence. When you post a photo of your dinner, you aren't just sharing a meal. You are inviting an audience into your kitchen, so you don't have to eat in silence. When you scroll through stories, you are peeking into other people's lives to avoid looking at your own. This has created a generation of people who are physically alone, but mentally and emotionally enmeshed in a digital hive. We have lost the ability to process our own thoughts because we are constantly reacting to the thoughts of others. We have traded the deep, quiet waters of the self for the shallow, noisy puddles of the feed. In the inverse mind, we distinguish between two very different states: loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is a state of lack. It is the feeling that something is missing, a painful awareness of isolation. Solitude, however, is a state of abundance. It is the ability to be alone without being lonely. Solitude is where creativity is born, where true self-reflection happens, and where your internal battery actually recharges. The person who can't be alone is constantly stuck in loneliness because they view their own company as a deficit. They see themselves as half a person, waiting for another half to make them whole. Sovereignty, the goal of the inverse mind, is about realizing that you are already a complete system. You are the pilot, not just the passenger. When you can't be alone, you are giving away your power. You are saying to the world, "I am not enough to sustain myself. I need you to give me permission to exist." There is also a neurological component to this, called the default mode network. This is the part of the brain that becomes active when we aren't focused on the outside world. It's the network responsible for daydreaming, reflecting on the past, and thinking about the future. For most people, this network is a place of imagination and planning. But for someone with high levels of anxiety or unresolved trauma, the default mode network can become a house of mirrors. When they are alone, their brain defaults to scanning for threats and reliving painful memories. They have a biological bias toward the negative. Because their internal landscape feels like a minefield, they stay on the paved roads of social interaction. They have become habituated to avoiding the quiet because, for them, quiet is where the monsters live. So, how do we begin to heal this? How do we move from the frantic need for others to the calm power of solitude? The first practical step is what I call microdosing the silence. If you are someone who panics at the thought of an empty evening, do not try to spend a weekend in a cabin in the woods. You will likely end up in a full-blown anxiety attack. Instead, start with 5 minutes. Put your phone in another room, turn off the music, and just sit. Don't try to meditate or be productive. Just notice the feeling of the chair against your back and the sound of your own breathing. You are teaching your nervous system a very important lesson. You are alone and you are safe. You are proving to your brain that the silence isn't a predator, it's just air. The second step is the practice of self-witnessing. Start keeping a journal that isn't for anyone else to see. When you feel that urge to text someone or post on social media, ask yourself, what am I trying to tell them that I haven't told myself yet? Often, our oversharing and our need for company are just ways of trying to get someone else to validate a feeling we haven't acknowledged. By writing it down, you are becoming your own witness. You are providing the mirroring for yourself that you usually seek from others. This builds the internal base that was missing in childhood. You are learning to say, I see you, I hear you, and I've got you, to the person in the mirror. Another powerful tool is the concept of the solo date. This is a common piece of advice, but it's often misunderstood. The goal of a solo date isn't just to go to a movie or a restaurant alone. The goal is to notice how you feel when you aren't performing for an audience. When you are at a restaurant with a friend, you are constantly monitoring their reactions. Do they like the food? Are they bored? When you are there alone, you can actually taste the food. You can notice the colors of the room. You can follow your own curiosity without checking in with anyone else. You are reclaiming your sensory experience from the collective. You are learning that your pleasure doesn't require a witness to be valid. We also have to address the fear of the internal critic. If the reason you avoid being alone is because your thoughts are too harsh, you need to change the tone of the conversation. Treat your internal monologue like a radio station. You can't necessarily turn it off, but you can change the frequency. When a self-critical thought arises, don't fight it, just label it. Say, oh, there's the part of me that's worried about my career again. By labeling the thought, you create a tiny bit of distance between yourself and the voice. You realize that you are the one hearing the thoughts, which means you are not the thoughts themselves. You are the space in which the thoughts are happening. This realization is the beginning of true internal peace. Sovereignty in the inverse mind means being the primary source of your own emotional stability. This doesn't mean you become a hermit or stop valuing relationships. In fact, the paradox is that when you become comfortable being alone, your relationships actually get better. When you don't need someone to make you feel real, you stop being needy and controlling. You stop choosing partners based on their ability to distract you and start choosing them based on their character and shared values. You move from a relationship of necessity to a relationship of choice. You are no longer two halves trying to make a whole. You are two whole individuals choosing to share a journey. The ultimate goal is to reach a state of integrated solitude. This is where you can be in a room full of people and still be connected to yourself. And you can be completely alone and still feel connected to the world. You realize that the boundaries of the self are not as rigid as you thought. You are a part of the universe, and the universe is a part of you. When you truly understand this, the fear of being alone vanishes because you realize that you are never actually alone. You are always in the company of the most fascinating person you will ever meet, the one who has been with you through every breath, every heartbeat, and every single moment of your life. The courtroom is closed for today. The noise is faded, the lights are low, and the door is locked. But this time, you aren't looking for the exit. You're looking for the comfortable chair in the corner. You're looking for the quiet. You're looking for the person you've been running from for years. It's time to stop the chase. It's time to sit down, pour a glass of water, and finally introduce yourself. Take a breath, put the phone down, and just stay in the room. We are deconstructing the scripts of the heart and reclaiming our sovereignty, one silent moment at a time. Tell me in the comments, what is the hardest part about being alone for you? What is the first thought that pops up when the music stops? Let's discuss the power of solitude below. You are enough. You have always been enough. If you've realized that your fear of being alone is actually a fear of meeting yourself, or if you're ready to start building your own internal sanctuary, subscribe to The Inverse Mind.